And the Tennessee Department of Health will be coming up to share some best practices for to prevent exposure to lead in the soil. And then our City of Chattanooga's RainSmart Rewards program will come up, and they will talk about how we're trying to integrate the two, being the Southside Chattanooga lead site cleanup and the RainSmart Yards program. And then following that, we will have a 30-minute period for question and answer. So I do ask that you hold all of your questions till the end, till that period, just so we can get through everything. It's possible that a question that you have may come up later in the presentation. I assure you we have plenty of time to answer your questions today. So we will have that. That's for general questions. And then if you have questions that are more specific to you, we will have a 30-minute period where you can ask us one-on-one questions. And please visit our booths outside of those doors. A few of our partners are here and have more information to share with you. Again, thank you all for being here today. We also have our Southside 2 on-scene coordinator here, Parvez Malik, and he's doing great work. Please stand up, Parvez, if you don't mind. So he's our new friendly neighbor in the neighborhood. So he'll be here to answer any questions that you have regarding Southside 2, which if you're not sure what that is, we'll touch on that during this presentation. All right, so first we'll start with the background. So Chattanooga was a major railroad and river transport hub. And so as you all know, it's located right on the Tennessee River. So there was a lot of transport going on. And they rebranded themselves as the Pittsburgh of the South. So a lot of industry started coming to Chattanooga, most notably foundries. And so these foundries produce mostly iron, steel, and brass, and they supported the regional growth of this region. We believe, and we've heard from accounts from residents in the area, that the foundries took their byproducts, so their waste material from casting different parts, and used that material to backfill and grade yards in what we are now calling the Southside Chattanooga lead site. So in order for us to determine the extent of that contamination, we've established 8 neighborhood boundaries, which you see here: Highland Park, Oak Grove, East Lake, Alton Park, Richmond, Southside Gardens, Cowart Place, and Jefferson Heights. I do want to point out that these neighborhoods do not match the city's designations. So you may or may not be included within these neighborhoods. But you're always able to check with us and we can easily let you know. So with that, at the time, there wasn't a lot of environmental regulations in place. We weren't aware that there was some lead in that byproduct material, and so it was acceptable for the boundaries to bring that material to residential homes. And it's also, they would also stockpile it at their own facilities and build on it and things as such. So it was common practice during that time. So our sampling, this briefly shows our sampling and cleanup process. Okay. So as I stated, we have 8 residential neighborhoods. We're using a sampling method, a composite sampling method known as incremental sampling. And do we have that probe? So this is the probe that we are using to do the incremental samples. So if you're within the 8 study neighborhoods, we will schedule an appointment with you to come out to your yard. We use this probe. We push it about, we'll step on it. We'll push it about 0 to 4 inches into the soil, collecting the top few inches of the surface soil. And then we combine all of that soil, and more or less, we average that number out, and we get a lead concentration for your property. So some properties, we split them into what we call decision units. So you could have a front yard, backyard. Vacant lots typically have what we call an entire yard. And we can get into that more specifically if you guys are interested. But more or less, the sampling process, lets us know whether or not your property qualifies for a cleanup under our current site-specific cleanup level, which is 360 parts per million lead. Results are generally provided to residents within 60 to 90 days, meaning we'll come out to your property, we'll sample, we'll analyze those samples, and then you'll receive a letter letting you know, informing you of your results within that 60 to 90 day period. Depending on where your property lies on the tiering system, which is just essentially a prioritization system that we have, that will determine when your property will be addressed. Prior to doing any cleanup work, we do meet with the homeowner for a walkthrough, and that's done at the property. And we'll just go over the cleanup plan with you. We'll write everything down. If we're in agreement, everyone signs off, and then we begin the cleanup process. The cleanup process consists of digging up the contaminated soil up to 2 feet. So not all properties are dug to 2 feet. Actually, at this site, we're finding that the average is about 18 inches where we're having to dig. However, if we get to 2 feet and there is lead contamination present, we put down what we call, here the next slide, we put down what we call a demarcation barrier, which is to the left, bottom left. The bottom left, sorry, we don't have a pointer. But that's just to inform you in case you decide to build a deck or dig back there or a contractor comes through. I know sometimes the city has to come through and put in underground utilities. That's just to inform folks that there is elevated lead concentrations in place at that depth. Once we finish with that, we backfill the properties, and you can see that here in the center. And I kind of got ahead of myself. At the top middle, you can actually see the foundry material. So it's not always visible, but when it is visible, it usually looks like a blackish gray, kind of like coffee grounds. Surprisingly, plants grow very well in it. Folks love the material for growing purposes, but unfortunately it's not good for our health. So here are some neighborhood statistics. I hope you guys are able to see this. If not, we are going to have a copy of this presentation on our webpage. But in short, within these 8 residential neighborhoods that we're working in, there are approximately 5,540 properties. This number fluctuates. Not all of these properties will get sampled. Some of them are unable to be sampled due to overgrowth, paved surfaces. Again, we have to be able to stick this probe through the soil to collect the soil sample. So if it's paved asphalt, of course, we can't do that. That's considered what we call a cap. There's no exposure there. So you should be relatively, safe with a cap over the contaminated soil. So we have identified approximately 339 properties that are currently not able to be sampled. So 339 properties that are in that category. That also includes a few refused accesses and some folks that we've had some access issues, such as pets being in the yard, or we show up and there's locked gates, things of that nature. So considering the approximately 339 properties, we have sampled 4,110 properties. So if you take out the properties, the 339 that are currently unable to be sampled, that leaves us with about 1,000 properties remaining to be sampled. So that's a lot of progress. We started in March of 2019. So we've already gotten a lot of the sampling completed. And then we have cleaned up approximately 1,080 properties to date. So we're seeing about a 42% exceedance rate. So of those properties being sampled, 42% of them have a lead concentration greater than the cleanup number of 360 parts per million lead. So some of you may be familiar with the updated residential lead directive that was released last year. A lot of folks were like, whoa, this 200 number, you know, that's kind of, that's the main number that a lot of folks have been focusing in on, namely because it's a big drop in our screening level, which was 400 prior to that. I do want to point out, though, that the screening levels do not impact this project. Screening levels are used during the investigation period when we don't really have any information on the site. It's pretty much used for us to determine if further action is needed. However, this guidance also updated the target blood lead level. That does impact this site. That level was reduced from 10 micrograms per deciliter to 5 micrograms per deciliter. Just to give you guys an idea, our 360 parts per million lead site-specific cleanup level is based on a blood lead level of 8 micrograms per deciliter. We went slightly below the recommended 10 micrograms per deciliter because lead is more bioavailable here in Chattanooga. But please be aware that when we're developing cleanup levels, we consider the bioavailability, which is if you were to ingest the soil, be it, you know, gardening and it's on your finger and you accidentally ingest it, the amount of it that stays within your body versus passing through your body. And then we also take into consideration background levels. So what is the naturally occurring lead levels here in Chattanooga? We take that into account. And then we also look at blood lead levels of reported blood lead levels in the city of Chattanooga, namely for children. So again, with the blood lead level being reduced, we will be issuing what we call an explanation of significant differences. So this is just a legal document that we have to put together that makes note of a change to the remedy that's not a major change, right? So we're still doing dig and haul, which is digging up the contaminated material and taking it to a landfill. So that's still the same. This explanation of significant differences will include a lower site-specific cleanup level. So that is coming. We expect to finalize that by the fall of 2026. However, you all will have the opportunity to review that document. It'll be proposed at first, so it's not going to be a final document. We'll show you all the proposed document. You guys will have a 30-day comment period to make comments on that document, which we will consider before finalizing the document in the fall of this year. We do not have those dates as of yet, but when we do, we will inform you all. I'm sure, you know, the media will let them know. We'll also send out letters, post things to our site webpage, so you guys will be informed if you choose to comment on that. And so now the Southside 2. So I know, you know, folks in Chattanooga, who's used to seeing the red trucks driving around, right? Everyone's pretty much used to seeing the red trucks. So we started getting some calls like, hey, we're seeing these red trucks outside of the 8 neighborhoods. You guys told us that we didn't qualify. So we just want to clarify, you know, we want to make it clear here that we have not expanded the Southside Chattanooga lead site. What you're seeing is properties that have been referred to our removal program, which Parvez is leading, and they're doing what we call a time-critical removal action, which is a rapid cleanup conducted when an imminent risk to human health or the environment requires prompt action. So that's what they're doing. They are prioritizing properties that have elevated lead concentrations, children present, and childbearing families that are potentially being exposed. So that's what they're prioritizing at this time. The site has not expanded. These are two separate sites. They're actually, their referrals are coming from TDEC. They are offering, this is the importance of doing the free lead screening because we're looking at that data, we're moving forward on that data. So please, if you're outside of the study area and you are concerned that your property has elevated lead levels, please utilize that resource. So that's what's happening at Southside too. So they are working, they have the same contractor as the Southside Chattanooga lead site. So that's why you're seeing the red trucks outside of the 8 study neighborhoods. And here's an update for Southside too. They have been referred 39 properties to prioritize. Of those 39, 28 have been sampled. Removal action has been completed at 18 of those properties. There are 2 where cleanups are currently taking place, and then there's 19 remaining. I do want to state that they received these referrals in batches, so they'll actually be wrapping up the first batch, which was about 21 properties. They'll be wrapping that up in 2 weeks, and then once we get more money in March of 2026, they'll begin the next round addressing the additional 18 properties. This one is a bit tough. This is a bit of a tough slide for me to present because, you know, I'm very proud of the work that we've done. Of course, as I stated, you know, this is a team effort. None of this work could have been done without our state partners, our contractors, our local support, and state support. But unfortunately, the current contracts at the Southside Chattanooga website are expiring, meaning that we will be, something popped up here, meaning that we will be having new contractors come out. I will state that these contractors are experienced in EPA Region 4. They've already done a lot of work at other sites within the region. It has not been announced yet who those are. We have made a selection, but I can't share that until it's been approved. So we should be sharing that with you all soon. So we're gonna have a new contractor doing the cleanup work. And then we will we'll be doing some updates as well with sampling, but that's a bit further on down the line. But again, we'll keep you guys updated when these changes occur. But our contractor, the leader of CMC is here. And so if you guys could please give me a round of applause for the great work that they're responsible for cleaning up the 1,080 properties that have been done so far. And that is a very huge feat. We started at, I think, completing about 20 to 30 properties a year, to our highest year being 225 properties completed. So tremendous effort from those guys. So we greatly appreciate all of your work on the site. And this, I believe, is my last slide. So with the new contracts coming, it is possible that the Superfund Job Training Initiative will be coming to the Southside Chattanooga lead site. This initiative provides environmental job training to residents living in or near the Superfund site. The JTI prepares local residents for careers in environmental cleanup and related fields, including hazardous waste operations, sampling support, and remediation activities. Excuse me. So this is where we will ask local residents who are interested to assist at the site. They get in-field job training, and then there is the potential for the contractor to hire them on permanently to do cleanup work, sampling work, what have you, at the site. So we know how important it is to the state to get the community involved, and to strengthen the economy. And so we want to do as best we can and offer that opportunity to local folks who are interested. I personally have not done the program, but I've heard nothing but great things about it. If you're familiar with our similar lead site in Atlanta, Westside Lead, that project has been implemented there, and I've heard pretty good things. So we're hoping to bring that to the Southside Chattanooga lead site as well. And then this is my last slide. I finished this presentation way early. So wow, that's great. So but anyways, this is our contact information. Again, I'm Jasmine Jeffries. I'm the remedial project manager. Behind me, Donica Wiley, she's our community involvement coordinator. Nathaniel Urtep assists me at the site. He's not here today. Parvez Malik, again, you guys just were introduced to him. He's the on-scene coordinator for Southside 2. So if you have any questions, please see him. And then Zaria Lewis is the community involvement coordinator for that site. And I think Zaria is out front assisting folks that may be coming in. So if you have any questions for any of us, please let us know. We'll enter into the question and answer period now. If folks have any questions, just raise your hand and we'll invite you to ask your question. Okay.
Yeah, I think you mentioned there's a change there's a upcoming change to the screening levels, but isn't there also a change to the removal level? Meaning, I think the removal was like 200 parts per million before. I think they're talking about tripling the removal level for people to actually get the lead out of their yards. It would have to.
Yeah, so the removal level has, and Tim would probably be best to speak to that. Tim, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, the new guidance, for a long time, our screening levels for screening for Jasmine's program and our emergency response have been the same. And there was wanted to be some daylight between those numbers. And so the new guidance does change the screening level, but to meet the emergency response, what we call our removal management level, from 200 to 600. That doesn't mean that's the cleanup number for those sites. That's the number that's high enough that we need to take a federal action and mobilize someplace. So at Southside 2, for example, the state has been referring concentrations that meet that are over that 600. When that happens, we set a site-specific cleanup number that follows our usual rules for cleaning. So the idea is that once, that 600s are ticket to the party for our removal guys to get out there. But once they're out there, we set up a site-specific cleanup number for them to remain protected, if that helps. It's just really a prioritization thing to get out there. Does that answer the question?
The cleanup number makes sense, right? That's your target, right?
Right.
But no one gets their yard cleaned up now unless it's 3 times screening at 3 times higher than it was before.
No, that's not what we're saying. So there's different things. So within the site boundary, we're past the screening. We're in cleanup. We have a site-specific cleanup number, and as Jasmine indicated, the number is going to go down. So it's 360, and it's going to be less than that. Outside the area, 600 is, there has to be a yard that's above 600 parts per million in order for it to not be a state thing or somebody else, another program cleaning up. 600 gets a removal branch out there, and then once they're there, we're setting up a site-specific cleanup number that's lower, okay? And that is the number that they, any yards in this batch that Troy is referring, it will now be cleaned up to that level.
Yeah, okay. So beforehand, say like last year,
Yeah.
would there be trucks sent out to somebody that's sitting at like 250?
Well, it's the same thing, right? Right outside the boundary, we're looking for, the yards that are really high with children. And we would have, they were cleaning up, right now, yards above 200. So Troy refers a yard that's like 6, 8, 1,200. Our cleanup number was down at 2.
Okay. One more thing, on the blood level,
Uh-huh.
I think so you're from 1994 to 10, now we're looking at 5.
Right.
I think the EPA says 3.5 is their goal. Why are the agencies not aligned there?
The CDC is at 3.5.
Yeah.
Okay, just, yeah.
Sorry, E's, yeah,
Yeah,
E says 3.5.
Why we're not there is, that 3.5 we found when we look at cleanup numbers, at 3.5, we're getting below, background, from one. The other is that that's not tied to a health outcome. It's tied to the 97.5% percentile that most children in the US are below. So as we do a better job of cleaning up, that number is going to keep going down and down and down. So we've disconnected from the CDC. 5%, 5 micrograms per deciliter right now is like that sweet spot where we are lowering, we're being protected, we're going down. And we're not getting to below levels that we're not coming up with cleanup numbers that we can't achieve because of that.
Is background localized to Chattanooga? Like, do you normalize for Chattanooga's background?
Yeah.
So what if Chattanooga might be higher?
We worked with TVET to do a site-specific background study. Here in Chattanooga, it was 190 parts per million.
Okay, yeah, all right, thanks.
I think you had a question, sir?
Well, I was curious, tonight was just the first I've heard of the Southside 2. And I know all the information about the Southside 1, as a builder, I can look at, see where your maps are and where to pay attention. Is Southside 2 at a stage that, is that defined yet, where they have a map showing the
So I will
scope of it?
say, and let me just, I think to answer that question, I'd have to explain the difference between the remedial program and the removal program. So the removal program is focused on, for this site, a time critical removal action. So they don't do necessarily, they're trying to get in and get the lead out, right? Because these are properties that are found to have potentially high exposure rates to residents. So they don't have all of the dashboards and metrics and things like how we have laid them out. But if you give us a call, we may be able to assist you and help you navigate that a bit better. They're working with far fewer properties than we are, but their program is focused on time critical cleanups. So it's very slightly.
But it doesn't fall into a geographic location the way, because it's just wherever somebody's called us up, asked us to come screen, we go out and we find that they have a problem. And so you're not going to see any rhyme or reason to where they are.
We're responding to hotspots.
Yeah.
We're playing whack-a-mole, basically.
And I apologize. I'm going to get to you 1 second, sir. This is Tim Frederick. I apologize. I did not introduce him earlier. He is our risk assessor. So all of our risk questions, he is our guru. So I thank you for being here, Tim.
Yeah, sorry I didn't introduce myself.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was like, oh wait, Tim just got up and started. I never mentioned him. Yes, sir.
So is there a way for residents to go in and check the status of their individual properties?
So we don't have that. It's been kind of a legal issue for us because of personally identifiable information. We're trying to find a way where we could use maybe like an EPA ID or something so folks can kind of go in and check. But we've gotten a little bit of pushback on that because it's supposed to be, private to the resident.
So as a resident, there's no way I can find out if my property's been tested?
You can call us and you should receive the letter and everything. We can tell you about your property, we just can't tell you about someone else's.
Yeah, no, that's what.
Yeah, so we have that. We just don't have any, I thought you were asking, do we have something public facing where you could log in and see, what your
I just,
lead concentration
for individual residents, if there's a way for them to check.
Yeah.
People certainly are turning and moving to a new property.
Yeah,
all the
of
time,
course.
To get inside into that property.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they
so
would call.
Yeah, so we have our contact information here on the last slide. So if it's relating to the Southside, Chattanooga website, you can contact myself.
Okay.
Dominica, sorry, or Nathaniel, he's not here today. And then for Southside 2, you can contact Parvez, Zaria, who's back there waving her hand, or John Maddox, who also is not here today.
And I would also like to add, if there's anyone that's currently here tonight, as Jasmine said, I'm the community involvement coordinator. So if you're with the HOA, if you have any partnerships, the community, reach out to me because we can definitely check And we were more than happy to come to your HOA events. If you're a realtor, get the word out there, and that will be a great help for us. So keep my information, and I would love to partner with you.
We'll come to, if you have a group, right, again, realtors, we're trying to get the word out to people who have, this every day in their day-to-day business. We'll come, we'll give a presentation and eat and bring snacks, right? So, yeah, it's seriously, though, if anything you can do to help us get the word out.
Yes, you next. Yeah, you
Oh.
next, sorry.
We just moved to a property and we have an 18-month-old and I'm currently pregnant. And it was measured back in October, but the level was 260. So I was told there's nothing to do about it. Is there a way to be reassessed since we have an infant?
So you wouldn't be reassessed, because the lead number wouldn't change.
Yeah.
But you would, more than likely, you'd probably be included once the lead number
Okay.
goes down.
So once you release that next number in the fall, would we need to reach out to y'all or would we?
No, we'll reach out to you guys. We've kept, even folks that don't currently qualify, we still have all of your contact information, all of your sampling information, so you wouldn't need to reach out to us.
Okay.
We'll be in contact, yeah. Yes.
I've been in my home 38 years, and I had no idea that the soil was contaminated. I raised my daughter there, I grew food, we ate the food. We do have some health issues, but I don't know if that's because of the lead that was in the soil or what. Mine came back 330. I think that's close enough to 360 for cleanup.
Yeah, well, we have that threshold, so there's a lot of folks, like if we had to clean up, your yard, there's a lot of other folks that we would also have to clean up their yard. So unfortunately, the standard currently is strict at that particular cleanup level. I will say again, we're reassessing the cleanup number now. The lead concentration, the site-specific cleanup number will be going down, so it's possible that your property would be considered for the next group of cleanups once we lower the cleanup number. I personally can't speak to health effects, that's just not my realm, but we do have the Tennessee Department of Health, and they're gonna come up and discuss some things relating to health and exposure to lead. So hopefully that can provide some insights, hopefully. But I will say that the reason why we prioritize children is because a lot of times, if they're exposed to a lot of lead at a young age, the effects are typically unreversible. So that's why we're prioritizing those. For adults, it can cause some issues as well, but it's not as, typically not as dangerous as if a child were to ingest or come into contact through like a dermal cut or something.
My daughter was
with lead.
1 year old,
Mhm.
and I'm growing vegetables. We're eating cucumbers and squash.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we
She's
didn't
38
know.
now. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, well, we didn't know back then either. So in 2011, there was a gentleman, and I probably should have stated that at the beginning. In 2011, there was a gentleman that went to the emergency room. He was found to have elevated blood lead levels. He wasn't a child, he was a middle-aged man. That's what prompted these initial investigations. We started over on Reed Avenue and Mitchell Avenue. So that's where this cleanup initially began. And then from there, we've spread out, and then that's how we've gotten to this. So the cleanup really became known to, or the issue really became known to us back in 2011 when that resident.
Is that the only way that the soil would be contaminated? Is
From
by-
boundaries?
Yeah,
Is that what you're asking?
boundary sand?
Yeah, lead
Could it
paint.
be
is-
airborne and it lands in your yard?
That's why we have an elevated urban background in Chattanooga, is because, the foundries leaded gas for all those years. And so, our true natural range is like 20 to 60 parts per million. But like Tim was saying, because of all those urban activities over 150 years, it's pushing up about 190. And the other thing about your veggies, you really don't need to worry about that. They don't biouptake unless you're in extremely high concentrations like 2, 3, 4,000. And even then, it's only in certain veggies. But your tomatoes, your cucumbers, no problem.
But I will say, you need to wash them thoroughly,
Wash
because
them,
what we
yeah.
found, and what we think was the case, we're not sure, with the gentleman, was that it wasn't through the actual vegetable itself, but maybe when they were eating it, they didn't get all of the soil off of the vegetable.
Especially
that
if
they
some
were
are in the
eating.
ground, like onions.
Didn't wash their hands before dinner.
Yeah, or
Well, they
that
have-
too, or if you're gardening and, you know, you don't
Green
know,
onions.
it's these, you know, it's the little particles that's.
The green onions are obviously growing in the ground, that X-ray up to 13,000. So again, we're talking extremely high numbers, not like what we typically see. Like, that's, gosh, maybe 10 times that we see numbers that are in that, you know, out of those thousands of locations. So it's not very common.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any more questions?
Is there anything else we can do for our yards if we don't qualify right now? Like, can we plant a particular type of plant? Is there anything else?
I'll see, the Tennessee Department of Health may have some more information for you, on that. We do encourage, I mean, you know what your lead concentration is right now. If folks feel really concerned and they still want to garden, we sometimes suggest raised beds. But you know, hand washing, you know, if your kids are playing outside and their toys and they're bringing it in the house, you know, washing their hands, washing the toys. Those are some preventative measures, that can assist in the meantime.
Vegetative cover,
Yeah,
mulch,
yeah,
gravel, anything that breaks.
You wanna cover,
direct
yeah.
contact.
If you can't touch it, it's not touching you, and you literally have to eat the dirt.
Well, my 18-month-old does.
Yeah. Yeah.
It happens.
And there's also in the back, we have some best practice handouts for you as well that.
Keep the Tonka toys in the sandbox.
Okay, so
Yeah, and I have a dog, Beagle, and he loves to dig. So he's digging all the time, and then he comes
That's
inside.
another element, you want to try to discourage that behavior, or you're gonna be washing paws every time you come back because the dust. The dust is definitely a potential route.
Unfortunately, I don't have information on, you know, the effects that it has on dogs, as we just do with human health and the environment, but
The dog's more.
a lot of people have
transport
had those
Yeah,
questions. Any other questions before we break into just one-on-one questions? And again, I wanted to encourage you all to visit our booths that we have out front in
Let's
Troy.
talk about the screenings real quick.
Thank you, Troy. See, I've gotten ahead of myself. No, adjourn, no, yeah, so we're gonna have, 5-minute presentation, or they're not gonna all have a presentation, but we're gonna have 5-minute talks from our partners.
This won't even be 5 minutes. So if you're outside the 8 neighborhoods, give us our contacts at the very
Oh,
bottom.
yeah,
Email is always the best, because then we can coordinate dates, times, we work around the weather, we don't do it if it's really wet or actively raining, but it's about a 30-minute process. We get real-time results with a X-ray fluorescence device. Just hold it against the soil, pull the trigger, shoots out X-rays, does a lot of fancy science magic stuff. It tells us what your actual concentrations are in real time. And we'd like to walk and talk, so you don't have to be there, but we prefer that you be there. Again, it's about a 30-minute process, and we'll explain what we're finding. We'll talk in great detail about ways you can prevent, you know, work on your ground cover, add a lot of phosphorus fertilizer to chemically bond lead, make it unavailable, whatever, but yeah, anything you want.
Yeah, it is a surface screening, so we're only looking about a centimeter deep. So we're not looking as deep as what EPA is finding, and it's not a physical sample. It's just a real-time X-ray shot on the ground. You know, I'd say we average about 10 shots per yard, depending on the size of it. If we start seeing some higher numbers, you know, we'll branch out and try to define that area sometimes.
And even though we're not doing the exact one-to-one type of sampling that EPA is doing, so far the data that we're getting is matching.
Correlating really well. Your data is also provided to EPA. We issue a report to them 2 to 3 times a year. So regardless of what the results are, they're gonna know. We're making our own nice little colored map every time, and it's starting to put the pieces together. So you're helping us
That's
out.
outside of the cleaning
That's
service.
outside, that's outside.
Okay, that's outside.
Right now, that's the only thing that we have to offer. It, again, is free. It takes about 30 minutes. We're pretty flexible on when we can get out there, as long as the weather works with us. Again, those results, when we find those time criticals, you know, especially children 6 and under, If you got, 1,000 parts per million in a spot, and you got a small child, you can almost be assured that the EPA will be out there sampling during the next go round.
We're gonna flag it, and we'll look at all the metrics that we're looking at for these time criticals. And, if that rises to that level, we'll put them on a list for the next referral to remove them.
But it is strange when, the house down the street is being cleaned up. But yours is not.
I've heard that one so many times, and that's the
and-
tough message that we've had to deliver to you, because we do sympathize, but the best thing we can do is give you those best management practices. It's not a poison that's gonna jump up and bite you. You, like Troy said, you have to almost eat the dirt. It's very.
What
it's
is
very
an acceptable level of lead in your soil?
Well, like Tim was saying, you can't do anything about what nature is, but, and we see 40, 50, 60 parts per million all the time. Arsenic is
natural
naturally,
soil,
yeah.
naturally derived.
Yeah,
soil.
arsenic's 3 to 6, but the thing to take away is dose makes the poison. Too much water will kill you. Too much air will kill you. Not enough, same thing with salt or anything else. Dose makes the poison. And so as long as it's not getting into your system and your blood lead levels are not getting, right now above that 5 microgram per deciliter. And again, that's not an instantaneous exposure. Let's say you got a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old. It's not a one-time exposure. It's continued exposure over time that prevents the neurological development. But once you're over that, like with the husband and wife that started full recoveries, but then, and we didn't know about this, back in 20, we've known about Foundry Center for decades. This is no longer Foundry Center. It looks and behaves just like topsoil.
And to your point about alternate sources, the lead paint, interesting
Exactly.
situation. We met with a couple up on Lookout Mountain.
Signal.
And the gentleman had elevated arsenic levels in his blood. And it just so happened that he worked in the lumber treating industry. And so we're like, okay, red flag. So we screened the yard. We found one spot that looked Foundry related, but nothing to really get the twist about. And so they invited us in. We talked about the results, and they just, how could it, how is this happening? And so we happened to notice that they had some old English flatware.
Wedgwood.
Yeah.
I got some of
And
that.
we screened that, and boom,
There.
the arsenic levels were in the tens of thousands.
Yes, lead was like 100,000, arsenic was 30,000. And we saw a very similar thing up on Signal. No Foundry sand in the yard, but, buy clear glass. If don't eat off antique china. And the same thing with furniture. So some of the leather dyes, especially if it's an antique, the organic or inorganic dyes used to use like a beautiful yellow as lead chromate. You've got lead and chromium-6, both very bad for you, but it makes a beautiful yellow. So,
And I wanted to add to the point where you were saying, your neighbors might be elevated and yours isn't. So again, this material was transported from the foundries to these residential homes. So it's not naturally occurring. There's always lead naturally occurring in the soil, but that's not the lead that we're addressing here.
It could
So
be boundary material and boundary material, but
Yeah.
it depends on the date of generation and what
Yeah.
boundary it came
Well,
out
I've been,
of.
It's not all
my
of
house
them.
is 110 years old.
Yeah.
I've been in the house 38 years. There's a railroad track right in front of my home. So I think 330 ppm is too much.
Well, so does our guidance. Our guidance
Yeah.
thinks that's too.
Yeah.
That's why the lead
Stay
number is
tuned.
lowering.
Stay tuned.
So we just can't, unfortunately, we can't disclose more than that at the moment.
We have a question in the back there.
Yeah, but there.
No, right, excuse me. She's been waiting. Go ahead. What's your question?
I would like to know, I'm still based out of Atlanta, because I know, it was the amount of people that was coming around testing the soil. So are you, still program with them, or you all have someone local?
We have a local office. A site trailer, but we do have help that comes up from Atlanta. And your question, sir?
Yeah, how many of the ones that have been sampled, so after sampling, like how many are in the queue to get a red chuck out there that are left?
I think we're around, oh, I don't wanna lie here. Let me see if I have it on our.
700?
Around 500 something are in
And
the
is that
queue.
number expected to change with the new?
Yeah, it will change. Like I said, we have a 42% exceedance rate. So of those 1,000 properties remaining to be sampled, 42% of those, we are expected to have elevated lead levels above the site-specific limit number.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
At your current rate, how long will it take you to test those 1,000 properties?
We sample on average, I wanna say like 500, a year. So I'll tell you, our goal is to get the rest completed in 2 years. We've made a hard, goal of 2 years for those remaining properties.
Part of that depends on the property owner giving permission. So
Yeah, yeah. In a perfect world, it'd be like go from door to door and get access from everyone on the block.
Yeah.
That makes it easier on the cleanup crew. They can, it slows the mobilization down, they can match grades, but it just doesn't unfold that way.
Yeah, it's just kind of, it's tough to think if you have kids in that property that are going to be tested 2 years from now and they have elevated levels and then it takes a while to get remediation. That's I guess a tough reality.
And that's what we have, so I know it's tough, but that's why we have also some best management practices in place so that hopefully you can reduce your potential exposure to the lead in the soil. Yes.
Where is the contaminated soil going?
So we are taking it to the, the Bradley County landfill. Yeah. Yes.
And so as far as exposure goes, is the predominant route through ingestion
Yes.
of the dust, not
So not ingestion of the dust, but ingestion of the soil itself.
ingestion of the soil? So it's not necessarily as airborne or.
Yeah, no, for inhalation, I mean, it would have to be like literal dust
Yeah.
moving all around you, and that's not,
Yeah, the exposure assumptions that, like the models are based off of is 200 milligrams for a child, 100 for an adult. And it's like, well, how do you eat dirt? How you eat dirt is you go out, you get your hands dirty, you eat your sandwich without washing your hands, you just ate dirt. And it is small amounts, so it's not like, pica behavior where you're actually picking up a clod, but children will do crazy things.
So it's not so much the lead in the soils in dry conditions being kicked up, and because I think in terms of respiratory, depends on, I guess, the substance, but typically respiratory is a more
It can be a
kind of
little
higher,
Tim,
higher
you're gonna
exposure.
Tim's gonna add to that.
My understanding.
Yeah, so again, like if you got a big dry patch in your yard, you're mowing it, and you're in a cloud of dust, you could be inhaling.
Yeah.
And that is a route of exposure. Primarily though, it's that ingestion pathway that's showing. But absolutely inhalation. And to be completely, Jasmine mentioned earlier, if you have a cut and you get soil in the cut, that lead can get directly into your bloodstream and go around. That's going to be less frequent, but primarily it's that ingestion pathway. Which is a good segue to get the Department of Health up.
Yes, that's good. Oh, yeah, you're okay.
Hi, everyone. I am Sarah DeBenny. I'm with the Tennessee Department of Health Environmental Epidemiology Program. We partner with TDEC, EPA, and CDC on a lot of these kinds of projects. So I'm here today just to give an overview of the health effects of lead and how you might be exposed in addition to this ingestion and inhalation pathway of soil. So like I said, so far today, we've mostly been talking about lead in soil, but you can be exposed in other ways as well. It's important to remember. Commonly, if you live in an older home, which I know is pretty common around here, but homes built before 1978 are going to have a lot of lead paint that you can potentially have ingestion or any other issues with. You can also have lead-based solder used in your pipes if your house was built before 1986. As well as you can be exposed by eating vegetables or fruit grown in contaminated soil without thorough cleaning. And as well as, cheap jewelry, old or imported pottery, spices, things like that. So you can there's a lot of different sources of lead, but the effects remain the same, which is I'm about to jump into that. So lead affects the central nervous system, and it can interfere with your body's ability to carry oxygen throughout to any organs, any cells. And it also affects the body's ability to absorb calcium, which is really important for, obviously bone health and as well as the various other systems. And then children, of course, are at most at risk of lead poisoning because they're more likely to lick or chew or, be children with contaminated items. And so symptoms in children, in infants and adults kind of do differ, but symptoms in children to look out for are going to be irritability, loss of appetite, fatigue, abdominal pain, constipation, and then up to learning disabilities if they've got prolonged exposure. And then for infants, if they're exposed, they are potentially experiencing as well learning disabilities and even slowed growth. And it does take a large concentration of lead in the body for an adult to experience symptoms, but as Jeff mentioned, that's kind of how this whole thing got started. So it is very possible. And so symptoms for an adult would be high blood pressure, headache, muscular weakness, declines in mental function, and reproductive system issues. So, if you or your children, family, friends think you're experiencing anything like this, it's always good to go to a doctor as soon as possible to get tested. If you're on TennCare insurance, it should be covered. Other major insurances should also cover the blood level testing. The first test is a capillary test. It's just a blood prick. That's always followed up if it does come back elevated with a venous test or the blood draw that gets sent to the lab to double check, make sure the level is right. The test result is right. And so those results, every person who gets a blood lead level test, those results are automatically uploaded to a secure data system to kind of keep track of just where everyone's at. And then if a child below age 6 has an elevated test, their results are automatically reported as well to the Tennessee Childhood Lead Prevention Program. And they specifically follow up with the family one-on-one to determine the source of the lead, if it's soil, if it's toys, if it's paint. And they'll educate the family on how to reduce lead and how to hopefully eliminate the exposure source and to ultimately decrease the patient's level under a dangerous amount into an acceptable range. And so some things that you can do on the daily to decrease your risk of lead exposure include washing your hands, washing children's hands thoroughly, their bottles, toys, making sure you eat healthy, low-fat foods full of calcium. I know, that doesn't taste great, but you can regularly clean your floors, windowsills, and surfaces. If you've been out in your yard, you've been out, just make sure you wipe soil off your shoes before entering. Maybe you take them off, leave them in the garage. If you're covered in dirt, have someone else in the family or leave out a clean pair of change of clothes to get into at the end when you're coming back in. If you live in an older house, built before 1978, and you're remodeling, consider hiring a lead-safe certified contractor. If you're in a older house as well, but from 1986, water may pick up lead and copper in the pipes. So if you're concerned about that, only drink cold or lukewarm water and let the water run for 5 minutes in the morning after sitting, because that's when it is going to accumulate the most. And finally, just if you think something in your home might be a source of lead and you're not sure about it, if you can, as much as possible, just stop using it, put it up so that no dogs or children or anything can get to it until you can get it tested. And that is all I have. Any questions?
The lead that may be in the pipes, are you talking about city pipes under the street that are servicing our area, or are you talking about from the street to the home?
So those are generally going to be pipes within the home. The city is, keeps those pipes maintained, or keeps their pipes maintained. So the primary concern is going to be if it's sitting in the pipe, like in the faucet, or coming from coming from into the home.
But on the copper pipe in the house, it's not copper,
It's dependent on the soldering primarily. So if it's, would you like to say generally if it's just before 1986, it could be a risk.
But we just got a letter from the water company, and they are concerned about the pipes was coming from the meter into our residence. So it's possible lead could be in our water.
It is possible, and so you can get your water tested. You can, do these tips to kind of decrease it before you get those results. Let the water flow. Heat it up, on a kettle or on the stove if you need hot water, just to make sure you're getting as low of a dose as possible.
There's also filtration.
There's filtration products. Yeah, lead comes out pretty easily with filtration.
Get one of those activated carbon filters and it'll take care of, a lot of stuff. So just make sure you change it when it's due.
6 months.
How long after chronic exposure begins do symptoms typically begin to appear?
So, do you want to take that, Jen? Or are you?
I'm Rachel Stone, the Child and Blood Poisoning Prevention Program Director for the state. So there's many times when children are exposed to lead and you have absolutely no symptoms. So times you will see symptoms and there's times that you will not. So it's just very important that if you think your child has been exposed to lead, that you take them to their primary care provider and get them tested for lead, and then just follow the go around the house, wipe down all the toys that they're exposed to, because many times, as Sarah has mentioned, because children at ages 1 and 2, they're crawling around their house, they're picking up all their toys and putting things in their mouth naturally. So it's really important to wipe down all their toys, wiping down the seals, as she has said, because many times that's where they're picking up the dust, and that had been mentioned before. Where are people, how are people getting exposed to lead in their bodies? It is typically through dust inhalation, through eating it either or through the inhalation. So, and it does affect adults, but many times we're seeing it's affecting pregnant women. It's detrimental to our health, especially for children, infants, and pregnant women. Once you are exposed to lead, it does not, that the effects of lead do not go away. So it is detrimental to your bodies. It affects your brain development. So it's very important that you identify the source and that you follow up with your primary care provider for medical management of it. So that's what's so scary, is that many times you don't even know that you've been exposed to it. So if you follow the recommendations that Sarah had mentioned to try to identify the sources, and the Healthy Homes website at tn.gov, Healthy Homes gives some fantastic recommendations, as does the Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Program website. We've got tips for parents of places where you can go to your home to try to identify places to be able to identify the places where your child might be exposed, or where the infant might be exposed. But sometimes you never know how long it could take. And sometimes we see even low levels can be just as detrimental as a really high level that you might identify, and it be, you could identify the source and it could be taken away. Does that help at all?
Thank you.
Okay.
Open for one other question.
Yeah, when you're done.
And would you say that you would want to, if you are in an area where you know there's, some amount of lead there, and you were having dust potentially in your home, would you say a HEPA vacuuming is
Wet mopping.
is that would be necessary rather than just conventional vacuuming?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely would help. And like Pat said, wet mopping is something to keep in mind as well. Because, just a regular vacuum, you could just pick it up.
Right. And I have one other question, it's more of a technical one, but just tack it on the end. What's the particular type of lead material? I mean, what's the actual, you said it was more bioavailable, so what's the particular form that you all can see or we are?
Well, it's, at this site, it's foundry sand, basically, which is a fine grained material. And that small size increases the surface area where the lead binds up, from its original source into the yard. So
Lead oxide, lead sulfide, or what tends to?
Yeah, well, I mean, both, right? I mean,
yeah.
What particular,
So, yeah, what changes the bioavailability is particle size of the soil, the species of the lead itself, that when it was, manufactured or, from its industrial process, and the soil chemistry. So those things kind of decide how tightly the lead's going to be bound up to dust or soil. So when it's in the body, it'll either be released. That's what the bioavailability piece is. It could be released, be able to be absorbed into your bloodstream and distributed, or you're just gonna go out and be eliminated that way. So that amount is something that we test on a site-specific basis. We take soil from the sites that we're interested in. We did that early on in this process and discovered that this soil is more bioavailable than our national default. We have a site in Atlanta that's very similar, and it's less bioavailable because the source of the lead was different. The species that it is in the environment is different. The particles, everything is different there. So here it's that fine grain that is coming from foundry sand and just the makeup of the soil that it's blended in with. All right, we have one more.
Yeah, Haley's gonna come up.
The remediation that has been done up to now, is there more being found in areas that became driveways or foundations, or where are you seeing it on the site? It's for a leveling is what they were using it for?
Primarily in the yards, yeah, it was to raise, yeah, it was, you know, and when you look at it, it looks like rich gardening soil that you would find, that you would pay top dollar for. It looks really like it would be good soil.
It was given out as topsoil.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
So-
Founders would deliver.
Yeah. It was a free thing, so if you had a low spot in your yard, you could put it there. If your yard was in the floodplain, you could raise it out of the floodplain, and that aspect of it is why we clean up this yard and not that one. This one was lower, had foundry sand, received it, and this one didn't. Or this one received more than this one did. Or it came from different foundries, because there were something like 68 or something.
60.
So, you know, not every process was rich in lead. So it varied quite a bit.
What's the latest date that they were doing that?
What are the dates that we're looking at?
It's really from 1880s all the way through probably the 60s. What we find is that once they started doing the air emissions with the baghouses that are basically giant vacuum cleaners, that the foundry sand itself, unless it came from a brass foundry, lead is not part of iron, right? It's not part of that alloy. It can be up to 25% of brass, which is why I say for a brass foundry, all bets are off. But the lead, in theory, when they're feeding the furnace and melting it all down, that scrap is where the lead came from. And that's being cooked off in a very nasty, dirty process. Nowadays, it's all collected in the baghouse capture systems. Back then, it wasn't. And so it's just where in the foundry did it get scooped up and thrown onto the truck is why there's no real rhyme or reason as to why one yard that has foundry sand is perfectly fine, the other has it and is screaming hot. There's too many variables. And again, you had over 60 foundries in operation over a 150-year period. So there's just a lot of variables to it.
All right, so we're gonna thank you so much. And now we're gonna have Haley Hamlin come up. She's with the City of Chattanooga RainSmart Yards program. Oh, okay, sure. Oh, so
That's okay, we don't need it anymore.
let me work on it
If
while you talk.
If it does come
Oh,
up,
there it
there
is,
we go.
okay.
Maybe
Want me to click through it for you?
There you go.
Okay, you just want me to
There
go
we
from
go, there we go.
Okay.
All right, I think it's gonna work. Here we go. Okay. Yes, I'm with the City of Chattanooga. My name's Haley Hamlin. I work for the Stormwater Division, and this is. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I'll speak up. There's a microphone.
Yeah, that might, well, we turned it off, but just make sure it's not near the, you'll have to click it. We turned it off.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I'm Isabel, I'm from Waterways, and we're contracted out by the city to conduct stormwater management surveys on your property. So we couldn't test your water or anything for lead, but we can help reduce effects that's having on our environmental objects.
Absolutely. So the RainSmart Rewards program has two arms of it. We have a rebate portion, and we also have the stormwater fee discount portion. So if you are a resident of the City of Chattanooga, you have the ability to earn back $5,000 for installing native plants, implementing rain gardens, rain barrels, and doing stream bank restoration on your property. If you are implementing ecologically friendly practices such as green infrastructure, etc., you can receive up to 75% off of your stormwater fee. Why is this relevant to lead remediation? Because we have a wonderful partnership with the EPA. If you are having your yard remediated, they can help us and you kind of get these practices going on your property, whether it's digging out a rain garden or installing some native plants. So kind of a wonderful opportunity. And you're probably thinking, well, why native plants? Well, if you look all the way to your left, you will see traditional lawn grass has just a couple inches of a root system. It's not feeding us, it's not providing shelter, it's not providing really anything. It just takes. But native plants, on the other hand, they have up to 15-foot deep root systems. That's your phytoremediation right there. We're pulling toxins out of the soil. We're slowing stormwater down. We're reducing runoff by infiltrating it back into the ground. It's purifying our water. So these are all wonderful, beneficial things, of course. And of course, we're protecting biodiversity. So that's why we're here. This is an example of one of our supportscapes projects. This is for a supportscape is simply a native planting that has tremendous diversity. You could redo your front yard. You don't have to have a giant meadow. It could just be your front shrubs in front of your house. But if you'll notice, if you look on the left side, you have a house that has the same slope aspect as the one on the right side. The left side is eroding severely, and we see lots of runoff and sedimentation going into the street from that property, and that goes straight into our storm system, and that goes out to the Tennessee River. Siltation, erosion, going into the river is the #1 pollutant in Tennessee. 60% of our waterways are impaired. So now let's look at the right side. We don't have any issues there. We're supporting biodiversity there. There's blooms year round, and you don't see any of that runoff. You're building soil. It's just all around beneficial. So
From the look of that side on the right, you get sighted from the city.
There are property maintenance requirements, so you will have to have no more than 10-inch plants that are within 2 feet of a right-of-way. But here's the thing. Beauty is subjective, right? And I think beauty is more in the health of our environment, so the health of our children. So that's what I think is beautiful. Just my 2 cents. But also rain gardens are an effective, really low-tech engineered solution to reducing runoff and pooling. So we have a lot of soggy yards that aren't doing anything for us. All of that water is just scooping up all the pollutants, all the pesticides, taking it straight to the river. Why not infiltrate that, clean it up with native plants? So you can go from soggy lawn that your kids can't use to something beautiful that you can teach them about their native biodiversity with. How do rain gardens work? We're going to take your water that comes off of your roof through your downspouts, and we're going to send it to this infiltration basin, and that's about it. It's that simple. So, really cool thing. These are what they can look like. They can look any way you want them to, but these are some that we think are pretty nice, and your neighbors will probably come talk to you about them and want to do themselves. We're infiltrating so much water. With $35,000, we're able to infiltrate this amount of water. If we were to do that on city property, it would cost us $140,000. So we're saving you taxpayer dollars as well. And now I'll let Isabel talk about the stormwater fee discount.
Yes. So I work for Waterways. If you haven't heard of us, we're a local water quality nonprofit. We've been active in the Tennessee River watershed for 20 years now. So we focus on pollution in our waterways and reducing stormwater runoff. And we are contracted out by the city of Chattanooga to promote stormwater runoff mitigation and education, restoration through the RainSmart program. So you can have me come out to your yard and talk to you about stormwater runoff mitigation and reducing pollution from entering our waterways. And if you live within the city of Chattanooga, you can get up to 75% off your annual stormwater fee. So that's on your property taxes. So, every year you're saving. And as more people move to town, that discount is only going to serve you more as that stormwater fee goes up. So if y'all have any questions for me and Haley, feel free to ask. We're also out at the table. We have tons of resources for you. We love to answer questions. We love to talk solutions. So, please come see us.
All right, so that concludes our presentations. If you guys have individual questions specific to you that you would like to ask us, feel free. We have a few of us in the room. I can answer some questions. Donica can answer some questions. Tim is here to answer your risk management questions. And then we have Parvez here as well if you have questions outside of the study area relating to Southside 2. And then I don't think Troy. Okay, he's designated Pat. So Pat with TDEC can also